Afternoon and Friday evening into Friday night across parts of central and southern Missouri, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, central Illinois, northern Illinois, parts of central Iowa, eastern Iowa, southeast Iowa, northeast Iowa as well. And we're gonna go ahead and go over a couple of different things here. We're gonna go ahead and look at the HRRR forecast model first. We're gonna go ahead and look at the thermodynamics, the temperatures at the surface. So one of the things to note is that the HRRR is actually trending and is in agreement with the NAM forecast model with some pretty good uh, thermal development, some pretty good daytime heating. It looks like we might have some breaks in the clouds, adding to further destabilization rates across the area between uh, 15Z and 19Z between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. during the day on Friday. Across this area with our low pressure right up here across parts of northwestern Iowa. And with that being said, we have some pretty good substantial temperatures, at least with this forecast model showing between 72 and 75 degrees, with even warmer temperatures across parts of central Missouri, near the north of the St. Louis area, across parts of far central western Illinois, draping down across the western Missouri area, as well as eastern Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma, where we have temperatures close to 80. One of the things to note is that with that better thermodynamic environment, it's going to allow for better development, better organized supercell development. And we have our warm front draped right through here about this time, according to the HRRR forecast model, with our cold front still a bit to the west there. Um, and with that being said, there's some pretty good thermodynamics going on right now. According to the HRRR forecast model, about 2 o'clock Friday, uh, Hannibal, Missouri, north of the St. Louis area, up towards Cedar Rapids area, Iowa. And that actually continues along with the low pressure system. One of the other things is a lot of people were discussing the dew point profiles, and with that northerly advection, very strong northerly advection. I'm going to go back a little bit. We're already starting to see moisture starting to pump up into the Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle area and parts of southern Kansas. And that's ahead of our next big system that's going to bring a potential severe weather outbreak as well as a potential tornado outbreak for Friday. And we're going to see abundance of moisture with our northerly advection wind profiles, really bringing in that moist, rich air into the area out ahead of our system. And this is 11Z, about 10, 9 o'clock in the morning Friday. We already have dew point profiles across parts of central Iowa into the 60s, and then parts of southern Iowa getting closer to that 65 dew point threshold. And we should actually see a slight increase across this area as we start to see convective development start to initiate about 1 o'clock, 1 to 2 o'clock. And we should see some enhancements in that low-level jet. As that low-level jet starts to accelerate, we'll start to see that push of some more further accelerated dew point profiles across parts of eastern Iowa and southeastern Iowa and parts of northwestern Illinois and central Illinois as well. And across parts of southeast Missouri. So this is a bi-model setup. So what that means is we have the triple point up here across Iowa, and then we have the warm sector with a draping cold front with a semi-discrete, I believe it'd be semi-discrete mode, semi-discrete supercellular mode from Hannibal, Missouri down to West Plains, Missouri, down stretching further down into the Little Rock area. And that'd be going off to the east-northeast to east movement, about 55 to 60 miles an hour through storm motion between 4 and 7 o'clock on Friday. And semi-discrete supercellular mode with turning it into more of a congealed, potentially more of a congealed quasi-linear convective system with quick spin-ups from Hannibal, Missouri south across parts of St. Louis, stretching down into the Butler counties, southeast Missouri area. And that has me a bit concerned due to the fact the more discrete that we can maintain these supercells, the more of a tornado potential we have. And one of the things we're going to go ahead and look at here is the surface-based CAPE. Now, the surface-based CAPE is per kilojoule is the instability, destabilized instability in the atmosphere and the surface, low levels, and we've seen a large upkick in that, a very nice plume of really decent surface-based CAPE values uh, on that southeast and eastern side of that low pressure system, deepening low pressure system, seeing some pretty substantial CAPE values according to the HRRR forecast model. And that has me a bit concerned as well, generally along to the east of that surface low and to the southeast of that surface low. We have more of the veering with our low level, mid level wind profiles. Um, and we really start to see those surface-based CAPE values really uptick as we get that enhanced boost with the low-level jet kicking in, and some models are kind of agreeing with this, where we could see some CAPE values close to the 25 to 3,000 CAPE value mark, which is very impressive. Very impressive CAPE values. One of the things we're going to go look at is the supercell composite index. So basically, this takes all of the ingredients at the surface and in the atmosphere, and it says, hey, we have enough, we have parameters supportive for supercellular development. Um, and if we get storms to fire in that environment, it's conducive for that development. So one thing to note is that with that better destabilization rates at about 1 to 2 o'clock, we really start to see those values significantly climb. And our low pressure is about right here, according to the HRRR forecast model at that point. We have some very high SCP supercell composite numbers across parts of uh, northern and central Illinois and southeastern Iowa, northeastern Iowa, and eastern Iowa at that time. Some very decent supercell values. And as we go a little bit further south, those values actually increase a bit more significant. That's because we have better thermodynamics in that area. The shear profiles are very impressive, but they're not as impressive as we get closer to the southeast and east quadrant of that deepening low pressure system. And that's a given. But regardless, it's looking like a pretty significant severe weather outbreak over a broad area of that elongated warm sector as we go through the day on Friday. Has me a bit concerned. Usually I'm pretty conservative, but this does have me a little bit concerned with especially the tornado potential with this does seem pretty substantial. So now we're going to go ahead. This is the significant tornado parameters. So this is the same thing as a supercell composite. It takes and says, hey, we can get storms to fire off in that area. It's saying, hey, it's very conducive for tornado development. We know that already, but this kind of gives us more of a general idea. And we are seeing some very high significant tornado parameter numbers. And not everyone in that area will see it, we'll see severe weather. It's saying that the atmosphere is ready, the parameters are there to support tornado development. So keep that in mind. And another thing to note, up here across parts of near the Rochelle area, the Rochelle, Illinois area, Galesburg, Illinois area, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, um, Davenport area. Generally, we're I had initially made my forecast decision generally right through this area, this quadrant right through here has some of the best tornado parameters as of right now. We're getting pretty close to seeing some significant tornado parameter numbers between 15 and 20, and that's actually maxing out on those values. And then another thing to note is that further down across parts of extreme southeast Missouri, we also have some very prolific tornado parameter numbers as well, and that's also concerning as well. Um, I do think that some of these cells will be somewhat semi-discrete across parts of southeast Missouri, and generally up to the Mount Vernon, Illinois, from about let's say Springfield, Illinois, points down south to about Butler County, right where my cursor is. So generally along that line, it's looking pretty significant. Potential is there to have a very significant severe weather outbreak. Um, what we're looking at now, and actually, hold on a second here. What we're looking at now is this is helicity swaths, and what this is a product of the HRRR, basically explaining, saying that we could have potential rotating updrafts, and what that means is rotating supercells. Um, so one thing to note is that with this bi-model setup, is that there's some pretty significant potential for some decent rotating supercells across parts of Iowa and parts of northern Illinois, um, and also across parts of southeast Missouri. Now, also to note, this has been consistent the last four runs, the last four model runs, and also with some of the ensembles. It's been very consistent with this, and that's when you get consistency, when you get model to model run consistency, that's when you start to pay attention to things because it's very honed in on this. Things will still change between now and Friday, but I'm seeing some pretty alarming characteristics with this setup. Um, and it does bear watching. It does bear watching. I'm actually going to be chasing, obviously. So I will, right now, I've got mixed feelings on the surface low, triple point setup, or going over to southeast Missouri. And the reason why I say that is because for me, there's the potential for one, uh, if those cells down in parts of southeast Missouri remain discrete enough, there is better thermodynamics in that area, but there's less shear. But less shear is sometimes a good thing because sometimes when you have storm motions that are too fast, um, it can cause degradation to the structure. Sometimes, not all the time. But sometimes you don't, if you want tornadoes, you sometimes don't want those to be um, too sheared. So I'm keeping my eye on things. I'm going to make the decision to pinpoint. I'm still leaning towards Iowa right now and northern Illinois, um, for good reason. Um, but right now, that's what I'm leaning on. The opportunity to change that and go down to southeast Missouri is definitely there, um, as I do think that is a very favorable area as well as parts of Iowa and northern Illinois. There's a very good chance of seeing some stronger tornadoes. So um, one of the other things we're going to go ahead and look at is it's lightning density, basically a potential depiction of how many flashes, within 5 minutes. And these are going to have, these are going to be our good lightning producers. These are going to be very good lightning producers. Sometimes we have supercells and we don't have a lot of CG. That's cloud to ground. There's also CC, cloud to cloud. So, and I like to see CG. CG is cloud to ground, and that illuminates. If it's dark out, that illuminates the structure a lot better. This to me looks like it's going to be more of a daytime event, and that's what it's looking like right now. That's a good thing. We want that to be a daytime event. We want it to be a daytime event. We can see these better as they are approaching. We can identify, certain characteristics of a rotating supercell. Do we have a wall cloud? Do we have a tornado on the ground? It's better to identify these type of supercellular characteristics on the ground when it's daytime. A lot of the times I will use smell. My I will listen and I will look for power flashes or CG strikes during nighttime because a lot of the times you can go by smell, hearing, and um, CG strikes at nighttime, especially down in Dixie. One of the techniques is I use down in Dixie is I try to smell for pine, lots of pine smells, um, and whatnot. And so that's another thing I use. So with that being said, we'll get to the fun thing here. There's a fruit fly in here, and it's driving me crazy. And I'm a clean freak, so there shouldn't be. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and continue on here. So, and I'm very excited to chase this setup. This setup looks pretty prolific. Um, so here we have our bimodal setup. We have our setup down here with the semi-discrete supercells potentially across parts of southeastern Missouri, central Missouri, south central Missouri, parts of northern Arkansas, and northeastern Arkansas, Missouri Boot Heel. And then up here off the surface flow, we have these very fast moving discrete supercells right up in this area. And if I do go up to Iowa, I'll be staging in Macomb, Iowa. Um, that sits just to the west of Iowa City, and good road orientation network through there. I like that. Southeast Missouri's terrain's good, where I would be targeting as well. There's a few places that aren't known that I like to chase in down there, uh, and whatnot. And then, as you can see, what I was talking about, some of these cells, the HRRR wants to keep them somewhat semi-discrete. And if that is what does verify, if that verifies, the potential for the tornado potential goes up dramatically. Regardless, the tornado potential up in Iowa is also very significant as well, given that these will be more of a LP, low precipitation, and not HP, high precipitation based supercells. Most of these will be LP at first. Then I do think eventually that we'll start to have more of a cluster. Individual cells out ahead of the cluster, we'll have a cluster of supercells that'll be HP, and then we'll have most of them will be LP. Even down here across this area, some of those will be a hybrid between LP and HP across parts of southeast Missouri. And the as we go in about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Friday, you can see what I was talking about becomes more of a cluster with some renegade supercells. Renegade supercell potential is there from I would say Champaign, Illinois, north to Peoria, north of Peoria to Galesburg area. I think the opportunity for renegade supercells does present itself in that general area as well. So that's also another area to keep in mind for tornado development as we go through the day on Friday. So let's see here. It's a very dynamic system. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and it's picking the target and whatnot. It takes a lot of precision and skill because you have to understand that one area could perform good, but the other area could overperform. And you kind of have to, outweigh your pros and cons. What are you looking for? What are you wanting to do? Me, I'm in the research side of things. So you have to kind of go by that and decide what you want to do. But right now, it's looking like a pretty prolific severe weather outbreak with the potential for probably some numerous tornadoes if this continues to verify. And I do believe it will. I do believe it has a very good chance of verifying. So, with that being said, you all have a great night. Thank you for tuning in. And